Imagine Belle. Belle represents you. If you have met your twin flame, that one specific person where you felt more connected than ever before and more intense than ever before, and you think this is the love of my life, but he doesn't seem to be ready. In the beginning, he acknowledged, yes, I feel this too, but then he withdrew. This is what happened to Belle. And all of a sudden, when she was sitting alone on her couch, crying her eyes out, she was wondering, well, how come that he admitted that he has these feelings for me, and now all of a sudden he is withdrawn? How can he now just lie and tell me I made it up, or he doesn't feel the same? She thinks, I could never do this to a person. And she's even questioning her sanity. If he would love me, then he would be sitting right next to me, but he is not here. So this means he doesn't love me. But let's be honest, if he truly didn't feel it, he wouldn't have needed to withdraw. In this video, I'm going to break down 3 things. What is actually happening inside him when he pulls away, why you are misreading his silence, and the timing difference between the masculine and the feminine awakening that changes everything. And the last part is where most women get it completely wrong. So make sure you stay tuned if you want to understand what is happening in the masculine on this twin flame journey. Why is he withdrawing? Why is he maybe even lying, claiming he never had these feelings or that he doesn't have them anymore? But before we go further, there's one thing I need to make clear in this moment, because I need to make sure to speak to the right crowd. First of all, not every man who withdraws automatically is a twin flame. Yes, we do have this push-pull dynamic very often in the twin flame community. We do have someone with an avoidant attachment style attracting someone with an anxious attachment style, and vice versa, of course. And that is what is creating the push-pull dynamic, which is vital, because only then the oppressed fears can come to the surface and then can be cleared. But this can happen in many other connections as well. So withdrawing by itself is not at all, not even close, a sign that it must be a twin flame. Also not the intensity. If you want to learn more about this, I do have recently recorded a video about 9 signs that do not show or guarantee it's a twin flame, and also have the video of 20 signs of true twin flame connections. You can check those out. But let's talk about another thing before we dive in, because that is also important. In twin flame groups, I often read about women claiming that their twin flame is a narcissist. First of all, if he truly were a narcissist, it's not a twin flame, since those connections are not toxic. So we do not want to endorse any toxic behavior, especially not on my channel. So let's, for a second, just define the difference between a narcissist and someone with the avoidant attachment style. So a narcissist is slowly trying to make you feel smaller, and he or she, of course, belittles you, manipulates you, and enjoys the control he or she has over you. And also they often show these kind of tendencies towards other people, not just directed to a love interest. So there is no confusion. That is someone who actively is trying to shrink you. But an avoidant, that is something completely different. The avoidant, and that is what we have in twin flame dynamics very often, he feels the intensity and he pulls back to calm himself down. And I like to point out, yes, I'm using he and she as pronouns, but of course we do have the push-pull dynamic in homosexual twin flames or relationships as well. And also, of course, it can happen that the woman is in the masculine energy, but I will continue to use the pronouns he or she. Please make them fit to your situation. So yes, the twin flame with the avoidant attachment style, also called the twin flame runner, feels this intensity, and he needs to try to control it. He needs to soothe himself, and also for this moment needs to distance himself from you, because you bring out all of the intense feeling that he's not ready to face at that moment. And often it is vital for the twin flame journey, because often the woman, that's why we call it twin flame chaser. She's in the anxious attachment style and she's too clingy. And too clingy does not just have to mean by reaching out all the time. Often it does, that she's the one constantly trying to reach out, but it can also be the obsessive thinking that the other person, of course, perceives energetically and then tries to protect themselves from that energy. So if someone has an anxious attachment style, there is of course a reason, often found in childhood. Here the revision would help. You can check out my revision playlist because we can fix that. But if we have the anxious attachment style, then there is no way that we manifest someone or attract someone in a healthy attachment style. That's not our perfect match. Our perfect match in that moment is someone with the avoidant attachment style, because that gives the chance to growth, because that confronts us with the anxiety we have when someone is not reaching out. And that is vital, because only then we can grow, and that is what your soul wants. Your soul wants union, absolutely, but foremost your soul wants to grow. But now let's talk what actually happens inside him. When he pulls back, his system is not calm at all. It is completely overloaded. So let's talk about the masculine nervous system. So when we have a connection to someone, then of course it's not just on a soul level, it is also quite on a physical level. Our nervous system is also attached, you could say, to the other person. And so when the connection is very intense, it does not just feel romantic to the person, to the masculine, it feels destabilizing. And so for many men, those deep bonding, it feels like a loss of control. And instead of talking it through, they try to regain that control by distancing. So they distract themselves, maybe they focus on work, and they go quiet. And that distance is often a way to settle internal overwhelm. So the reason he distances is often the same reason he cannot fully detach. He cannot fully detach because the feelings are real, but he also cannot fully attach, commit to you, because he is too overwhelmed. But also let's talk about what's happening within you if you are the feminine, and why the feminine often tends to misread him. So if you're the feminine and you are watching for emotional expression, but he is reacting to emotional overload. So the feminine misinterpretation is that we often process connecting by talking about it. That's like the woman way. We love to talk, we love to connect. And also, especially if we do have the anxious attachment style, then we are seeking reassurance and clarity in the other person. And that is why often the feminine is chasing. She wants the clarity. She wants him to be there. She wants to get this kind of security, because she doesn't have it within herself first. And that is what this journey is about, to find it in yourself first, so that after that it can get mirrored. That is how mirroring works. It needs to be within ourselves first. So when the other person goes silent, then the system of the feminine often reads it as rejection. If you're the feminine, then you might assume, well, if he felt this too, then he would act like I do. But that assumption is projection. That is why we have the feminine and the masculine energy. They are polarities. Yes, they go together, but the different side of the coin. Imagine both cling, both were anxious. There would be no growth. The same if both would be avoidant, no growth is happening. So we need the push-pull dynamic in order to go on this journey, in order to heal, in order to push through. So if you think, well, I would do that, so if he would love me, he would do the same. That is not true. That is projection. You cannot go based off what you would do, what you would feel, and expect that it's the same for other people. Everybody has their own ways of coping with trauma, or trauma is a big word. It doesn't have to be trauma, but with attachment styles, with fears that are not healed or cleared yet. Your person's coping mechanism is often opposites of yours. So if you measure him by how you would behave, then you will always think like he doesn't care. And that might not be the case at all. He just needs the room to breathe. And also your soul needs the room in order to focus on yourself, on your journey, to grow, to heal. For example, with the revision method that I was talking about. And then he can catch up. Also, if you would like to learn more about revision, I already told you I do have playlists on that topic, but I also created the revision scripts. In there I explain exactly what revision is, why it is so powerful to reprogram your subconscious mind. And honestly, I've been working as a spiritual coach for like over 20 years now, and it is the most powerful method that I have come across. It is very simple to do. It just needs a little persistence. So if you really want to dig in and to clear that in order to get union faster, then you will find a link to the revision scripts below. In there I do have different scripts, different templates for different scenarios. For example, for some people, mother was too clingy. For some, she was not there enough. For some, they even experienced abuse. So there's different kind of templates that you can then just take and rewrite to fit your situation. But I have had many clients that were like telling me, Janine, I don't know where to start. How do I write a text like this? And that is why I created the revision scripts. But anyway, let's get to the next point. And this is the part almost no one explains correctly. And that is that the timing between the awakening between the feminine and the masculine is different. Even though in twin flames, true twin flames, we're not talking about people just falsely labeling the other person. True twin flames, they meet and there's this instant recognition. It's there right from the get-go, right from the start, like second one. And that is also connected to our limbic system, to our nervous system. And that part in our brain, the limbic part, that is recognizing, you could say, the energy of the other person, but that's quite a spiritual term. But you can say like their nervous system. Your nervous system recognizes their nervous system and vice versa. So both feel it in that moment very intensely. If that was not there, you may still have a very precious bond, but it's not a twin flame, and I'm not trying to take anything away from you. It's just problematic when many people just label many different things with the same label, because then it gets confusing. But everything I say in here still applies if you have this push-pull dynamic and there is real feelings there. The label in the end is not that important. It's just important to understand what we're dealing with, not to create any form of hierarchy like this connection is better than another's. But anyway, so both feel it in the very beginning. It is intense and both acknowledge it. And a little fun fact, often the masculine experience it even more intense. But then what happens after it? So they had the first meeting, it was very intense, or maybe they did not just have like this one first meeting. The first meeting is that ignited it. Maybe they even got together for a few weeks. Often the masculine again feels it even more intense than the feminine, but both feel it. But what happens is that the feminine, the woman, she feels the inner shift immediately. There is like this before he came into my life and after. Like we're not the same person anymore. It's like getting hit by a racquetball. That's how it felt like for me. Like first I was on the spiritual high, and then after like 2 weeks when it wore off, it was like, what the hell happened here? So they immediately feel something changed, something within me shifted. And one thing I experienced, it was maybe like 2 or 3 months later it started, that like childhood stuff, trauma that I had experienced, all of a sudden, even though I had been working on it for years, it came up, and I was fine during the day, but then at night, it was just like this broken record playing in my mind again and again and again of negative experiences I've had. And that is your limbic system actually rewiring your brain. It is, I call it automatic healing. I know that there's a different term in psychology that I cannot think of right now, but when we have these super intense connections, it actually does something to your nervous system. The men, they feel it too at this point, but they suppress it first. And for the women, of course, this kind of suppression, it can look like indifference. Before I knew everything about manifesting, I always explained it to my clients like this. Imagine you meet this person, and it doesn't have to be a twin flame, it can be any romantic partner, and you connect in that moment, and then you share the feminine and the masculine energy, because we all carry everything within us. It has nothing to do with our physical gender. The woman falls out of her center into the anxiety, the fears, the negative emotions. And let's say she all of a sudden has like 65 or let's say 70% of the feminine emotions, but unfortunately at this point the unhealed ones. But if you share 100%, there's only like 30% emotions left for the masculine, and he has to balance it out and go to 70% into the unhealed masculine energy, which is oppressing or suppressing, it is distancing, it is denying the connection. The woman, who is more the anxious energy, feels him withdraw, and she gets even more anxious, and it pushes him away even further. That for her then is the opportunity when the fear and the pain is as intense as it could get to realize, oh my God, I have to do something because I'm suffocating in this pain. I need to grow, I need to change. And then she is starting the healing, like actively starting. That way she's getting more into her center. And then she learns to hold the center. She will fall out. It's not about never falling out. It's about always getting back into alignment. But if she's now in her center, as we said before, they have to even each other out. So she then pulls him into the center, and everything he oppressed now comes up. And this is when the man does the work. For him, it's faster. Why? Because she's keeping the center. She's holding him there. So whenever he would try to oppress again, she would fall out. She doesn't fall into this big pain anymore because she healed it. But maybe she's getting impatient, annoyed. But she realizes it faster, steps back into the center and pulls him back in. And this is where his work starts. So the alignment tempo, it's completely different for the feminine and the masculine. The feminine, she often, in real twin flame connections again, like in a real twin flame connection, you have this inner urge to grow and to learn more about yourself early on in this connection. If not a twin flame, still maybe powerful close connection, but in a twin flame it is about this healing. So for her it is like exponential. It will start really fast, but then it will slow down after a while because she's doing the biggest chunk very early on. For the man it might look like nothing much is happening for a while, and then towards the end of their twin flame journey, for him all of a sudden it accelerates, and then he is having this massive growth spurt. So if you're in this situation where you feel like, I have done so much work but he hasn't yet, don't worry, the man does not take as long as the woman does, because he cannot just go out of the center all the time, because she is anchoring him in the center, and then he just has to face his stuff. And that is the big difference I was telling you about. For the woman or the feminine, the acceleration is in the beginning of the journey, and for the masculine towards the end. So until then, yes, he will oppress. Yes, he will run. Maybe he will come back once in a while, but yes, he will keep on running for a whole while. I always compare it to those old scales. You know, those where you put your groceries or your goods on one side and then the weights on the other. Eventually, she's done the work and it shifts, and all of a sudden she is more the healed version than the unhealed version. And that is when he will catch up. That is when he really starts, when he realizes, oh my God, I cannot be without her, and I was oppressing my stuff, and now my childhood stuff comes up, and then he will work it through. How? That's not your business. That's they do it different than we do. It often happens just by taking time, contemplating, thinking about it. If you want to know more about twin flames and the science of twin flames and everything about that, you can of course check out my book, Awakening to Your Twin Flame. It is available on Amazon, and the link is below in the link tree. But what's important is the masculine awakening often starts resistant and then it ends undeniable.